Okay, darlings, good morning. When we left off, Ash and Isabel were inside the biosphere and they were ducking behind the counter, and the helicopter outside crashed, but all of the debris from the crash got sprayed into the biosphere because Kane and the other men were coming in through the doors. So they were also covered with all the debris from outside. Page 28. Are you all right? Isabel was shaking his arm. Are you hurt? Ash lay in a ball, arms wrapped around his head. His eyes were stinging from the dirt blasted there by the cloud that had barreled into the lobby. Tears welled and spilled over, running down his cheeks. His mouth was full of grit. Say something, she whispered. I'm okay. He blinked and sat up. I think. He rubbed his eyes and squinted at Isabel. She was covered in so much dust that her hair was now a color. Her face was streaked where tears had run through the grime. She looked as if she had just survived a tornado, which was exactly how Ash felt. All around them the air was hazy. Dirt floated in a heavy fog, specks of it sparkling in the sunshine. Now what? Kane's voice in the lobby, boots crunching. How do we get off this island? Ash and Isabel dropped flat and slipped as far as they could under the counter. Don't you have someone you can call? It was the older man who had spoken, the one in the disheveled suit. Disable all communications. Ash could tell Kane was trying to control her temper. Contain all personnel and seal this place. By the time anyone comes to investigate, we'll have Cronus and be long gone. That's what we agreed, Pierce. All you wanted was what you've got in that bag and that thing in the crate. Pierce, the man brought another flash of memory. Pierce sent you. That's what Mom had said when Kane and the slender man came to the house. It was all coming back to Ash now. The man in the disheveled suit was Pierce. There's a boat, Pierce said, on the other side of the island. I knew there was a reason we brought you along. Kane's voice was thick with sarcasm. Look, I'm in charge of... There'll be a radio on the boat, Kane cut him off. I can get a chopper here in well under an hour. That means crossing the island on foot, Pierce said. And this isn't just any island. There's a reason it's a black site. Devil's Island, he grunted. There are things out there you can't even imagine. There's no other choice. We'll lock this place down, get what we need from the residents, and beat it. But Thorn is still in there. We can't just leave him. If he thinks we left him behind and then he gets out, he'll gut us. Gut us both. Pierce sounded scared. My God, didn't you see what he did to those guards? That man in the corridor? Thorn almost split him in... Thorn. The name wrapped itself around Ash's heart and squeezed. Ah, so you remember how it started, said the voice. Thorn came to the house with Kane. Pierce sent them for you. Thorn is the one who put the needle in your neck, the one without any expression and the smooth, deep voice. Ash had seen into Thorn's expressionless eyes and now shivered at the thought of what he might have done to the guard. Thorn knows the stakes, Kane said. He can look after himself. We need to move. Boots crunched dirt against the tile floor. Then there was a tremendous clattering, and Ash looked up at the ceiling to see thick steel shutters rolling out across the top of the dome. Clatter-clunk, clatter-clunk. By the time Ash gathered the courage to peek over the top of the wooden counter, the shutters were almost halfway down. Outside, the clearing was a foggy smoke and dust, with 6 figures disappearing into it. The shutters continued to lower until they finally reached the ground, shutting out all of the light and coming to a terrible, shuddering stop. The steel encased the building like it was a giant metal tomb. Only a few glimmers of sunlight leaked through the links in the metal slats, dust hanging in the miniature rays. There was no sound in the lobby except for the beating of their hearts. Behind the counter, Ash stared up at the shutter. Where's the lab? Mom and the others must still be there. Isabel nodded. This way. She stood and turned without looking at Ash. She didn't want him to see her face, but Ash could tell she was trying to make herself calm, just like he was. There was enough light for them to make out the bottom of the stairwell, but the floor was just a gray sea, so they couldn't tell what they were going to stand on next. The cloud of debris had scattered a shower of broken twigs and stones all over the floor. To Ash, it felt like a carpet of crushed glass and rusty nails on the naked soles of his feet. So while Isabel moved ahead, he was left to pick his way through. "Slow down," he called. "This is killing my feet." Isabel stopped at the bottom of the stairs and waited for him to catch up. "What happened to your clothes and shoes?" "I wish I knew. That woman, Kane, she came to our house with that really scary guy called Thorn. Something to do with that older man, Pierce, and the way they were talking about Kronos, whatever that is. Thorn hit me, smacked me down, and stuck a needle in me, and that's the last thing I remember. Drugged me, I think. Mom, too." Isabel shook her head. "I saw them take you off the helicopter. I thought you were sleeping." Ash swept the debris off the bottom step and sat down. He lifted his feet, one after the other, and dusted away the grit and splinters that were stuck to the soles. "Was that really 2 days ago? I mean, how is that possible? How can I have slept for 2 days without waking up?" He turned to the stairwell, where the light was weaker and the landing was in darkness. "I need to find my mom. We have to keep moving." He could take another step, though. A voice floated down. "Pierce? Kane? What's going on?" Ash would have recognized that soft, deep voice anywhere. It was the last thing he had heard before waking up in the white room. Thorn. He imagined Thorn at the top of the stairs, staring down into the patchy light, his eyes dull like the dead, his face expressionless. "He'll gut us both." Ash remembered the fear in Pierce's voice. "Hide!" He hardly even spoke the word. It came more like a gentle breath. "What?" Isabel lowered her voice to match his. "Didn't you hear that?" "Hear what?" "Thorn's coming. We have to hide." They crept back to the reception and slipped under the counter again. Isabel was only a little taller than Ash, so there was enough room for them to squash into the places that were flooded with shadow. Ash could hear gentle footsteps descending the stairs. Then Thorn reached the bottom. He stopped. Ash imagined the man sniffing the air like an animal, listening for any sound. If this place had done something to his own senses, then perhaps it had done the same for Thorn's. When Thorn moved again, Ash could hear only the slightest rustle. Despite the debris on the floor, he crossed the lobby in near silence, moving like a ghost. Ash closed his eyes and listened to the whisper of footsteps, heading toward the far wall and then around the curb of the lobby before they came to a stop. Again, there was a long moment of silence. Then Thorn came in their direction. All they could do was lie there and wait as Thorn came closer and closer until eventually he stepped behind the counter, bringing with him the smell of new leather and peppermint. In a sudden moment of strange understanding, Ash realized he could hear the man's strong and steady heartbeat. His hearing focused on it as if it were the only sound, and it gave Ash such a surprise that his looking himself of Thorn's boots just a couple of inches from his nose. As he held his breath, Ash held his breath as the man ran his hands along the counter, then underneath until he touched a switch, no more than 3 feet above Ash's head. He flicked it, on, off, on, off. When nothing happened, Thorn sighed. He waited a moment before trying the switch one more time, then turned and left as quietly as he arrived. Okay, you can pause the video there and answer the questions. If you have any questions for me, please email me.